Where do I share my screen at here? Oh, okay, I see. Share content. Okay.
It's a little box with an arrow up.
Going back and forth between different platforms now and getting things blended.
Just a minute and we'll get started.
Yep.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Steve Zylstra. I'm President and CEO of the Arizona Technology Council, and I want to welcome you to the January Virtual Tech Speaker Series. Today's topic is Wait, There's More, Beyond SBIR Funding, and we've assembled a spectacular panel and a great moderator for today's session. For those of you who aren't aware, the Tech Council does well over 100 events a year between Phoenix and Tucson. We're a statewide organization. We have offices in those two cities. And if you want to find out about upcoming events or even membership in the Arizona Tech Council, go to our website at aztechcouncil.org. And we have some upcoming events I want to mention to you. We've got Arizona Photonics Days coming up in Tucson from January 19 to January 21. I think we have 87 members now that are in that particular space. So the Optics Valley Committee of the Tech Council organizes the events for Optics Valley, and that's run by Jack Schumann and John Dennis, both in Tucson, and they do a great job. For those of you that are golfers, we have our first golf event of the year coming up on January 26th. There are still some available openings, so if you're interested in golfing, please get signed up for that. Again, go to the Tech Council's website. And then finally, we have a VIP tech mixer on January 27th. This follows our board meeting, and our board members stick around and get to interact with the members at large. And this will be again in Tucson at Tech Launch, Arizona. So looking forward to seeing you there. If you don't have your video on mute right now, please do so. And please put your questions in the chat area, and Jill will be pulling from there to hopefully answer all of your tough questions. And if you'd like to speak, just raise your hand and you'll be called upon, and you can speak directly to either Jill, who will be moderating, or any of the panelists who she'll be introducing shortly. I just want to thank the Arizona Commerce Authority for sponsoring this event. We work hand in hand with the ACA over the course of the year, putting on many events and working on other strategic initiatives together. We have a really good partnership that's lasted as long as the Tech Council's been around, which is about 21 years. So I'd like to now turn this over to Jill Howard-Allen, who is my partner and collaborator, and with the Arizona Commerce Authority. She's the, I think, Vice President of Research and Development for the ACA. So with that, Jill, it's all yours. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. As Steve had mentioned, today our topic is Wait, There's More, Beyond SBIR Funding. As just a quick introduction, SBIR, STTR, we're government, we like acronyms. Small Business Innovation Research, Small Business Technology Transfer, which is funding for early stage innovation for small businesses, funded through 11 different federal agencies. While we're pretty familiar with the money, specifically non-dilutive capital that is provided through the SBIR program, there are additional programs and resources that are available that make this a very unique and I think useful program. So with that, I wanted to introduce some of these different programs and opportunities. Things that allow for grants for market research, IP legal costs, customer discovery, and more. And programs like the I-Corps program, which provide researchers and business people education on how to gain valuable insights in entrepreneurship, starting a business, and industry requirements and challenges. So what we hope you take away from this today is the who, what, when, where, and how to take advantage of these resources. And we have an awesome panel that's going to be able to tell you all about that. I'll have folks introduce themselves, and I want them to say one fun thing about themselves. There's many things, but just highlight one thing. Sonia, I'm going to have you start. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, so I'm Sonia Vohnout. I know many of the folks that are participating on the event today. So I'm president and founder of OppsSpot, and I provide consulting services for the small businesses. Echo? Okay. And as part of the service.
I'm just going to ask everybody to put it on mute. There's some background noise. Thank you.
All right, so try again. So one of the things that I work on mostly is helping the small businesses secure their funds with the SBIR or non-dilutive funding. And as part of that, we'll be discussing some of the options besides just going after phase 1 or phase 2 SBIRs today, as Jill mentioned earlier. But one of the fun facts, I guess, I have two, but I'm going to have to pick one. I love to hike. All right. And so I do that almost every weekend. And I'm doing the Arizona Trail is one of the goals over the next couple of years, which is about 800 miles from the Mexican border up to Utah. So that's a fun fact. Jill, you're muted.
Couldn't get that. Thank you, Sonia. Colleen, please introduce yourself and tell us one fun thing about you.
Hi, I'm Colleen Jankzac. I'm co-founder and director of research and development at Scintillation Nanotechnologies. We're a startup from the U of A, and we make nanomaterial detectors for low energy radioisotopes. When I'm not in the lab, and I sometimes have a little bit of spare time, I like to build model airplanes for indoor free flight competitions. So these are planes that, depending on the class that you're building, are a couple of grams in weight, and some of them can fly for a half an hour or 40 minutes inside of buildings. So it's kind of a very niche hobby, but it's a lot of fun and very challenging.
Of course you like microplanes as a nanotechnology company. Anita, please introduce yourself and tell us one fun thing about you.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. So one of my fun facts is my computer had to be wiped before the holidays, and now I'm reinstalling everything. So I was like, oh my gosh, I hope I can go on Teams again. But my name is Anita Bell, and I'm a director with the University of Arizona Center for Innovation. We are a business incubator network that supports startup companies based on science and/or technology. And we've been really supporting the SBIR, STTR programs for the past, I don't know, 15 years or so. I'm so happy that Shirley's back in her seat and getting more money to the state to support the work we've all been doing to helping you, the companies, get access to this amazing funding. And I'm here today to talk a little bit more about the I-Core program. For some reason, Jill thought I know enough about it, but I do. I'm quite familiar with it, so I'm super excited to provide information about this opportunity. And a fun fact, I was like, oh, Sonia, you're hiking. I like hiking. So my fun fact is that in April last year, I actually hiked down below the rim of the Grand Canyon for the first time. Not all the way down because I don't want to kill myself. It was about 1.5 miles down to 3 Points, I believe it's called, and then 1.5 miles up, so 3 miles, 4 hours, which is average. So I felt not horribly awful, but it was amazing. And yes, the way up was tough. So, but it was amazing. So there you go.
Terrific. All right, now you guys all know who to go to hike. Sonia, I'm going to start with you. You had said TABA. What does TABA stand for, and what is it?
All right, I love TABA. I've been doing TABA for many, many years, even before it was called TABA. So that TABA, the acronym means Technical and Business Assistance, and it was brought in to help the SBIR awardees or STTR awardees, help them commercialize their technologies. Because one of the challenges small businesses have, right, is that they're small, right? And they don't have the infrastructure in place or the folks as part of their team that can help them with the commercialization efforts. So they're really good in their technologies, they're really good in innovation, but they lack the ability to take an idea from product to the marketplace. And so the Small Business Association, or the SBA, decided that the small businesses needed an extra oomph and more help, aside from the funding that is provided to help with the R&D of their innovation. And they instituted the TABA, Technical and Business Assistance, used to be Commercialization Technical Assistance, or Discretionary and Technical Business Assistance. So it's been called several terms through the years. But what is really exciting about TABA is the flexibility it offers to the small businesses if they request for this additional fund as part of their phase 1s or phase 2s, right? And so we could talk a little bit more of the flexibility and the services if you'd like that, Jill, but let me know how far or how deep you want me to go into this.
Okay, that's actually good. So if I heard you correctly, then TABA is funding that's separate and different from the SBIR, STTR funding. And how much is TABA funding? It sounds like there's two, one for phase 1 TABA funding and another TABA funding for phase 2.
Correct. And so there is two very different amounts for phase 1 and phase 2. And you have to apply each time. The fact that you got it for phase 1 doesn't mean that you're going to get it again for phase 2. I mean, you have to apply and you have to win the phase 2, of course. But typically for a phase 1, it can be up to $6,500. And typically under phase 2, it could be up to $50,000. But not every agency offers it. So you have to read the solicitation very carefully to find out if the agency you're applying for is offering TABA funds, right? And so what you can apply for also might be slightly different, and how you apply for it also differs from agency to agency. So you have to read the instructions.
All right, read instructions. Sounds like a good tip.
Yeah.
Colleen, tell us a little bit about your SBIR and how you got involved in this boot camp. What is a boot camp? It sounds like something we need to practice before we go hiking.
So we did the boot camp as part of our NSF SBIR. And so that, in our case, was part of our SBIR award. It was expected that we would do the boot camp with that. So it wasn't a separate application. It was right into it. Right as soon as our award was, we were notified. It was like, you're in the boot camp, here it comes, get ready. And so in that case, you, it's kind of like a smaller version of I-Corps, but a larger version of this small I-Corps that they do here. So you interview 30 potential customers and you have weekly meetings. And in our case, we had additional meetings with our boot camp leader, who was very, very good at helping us find places where we were not asking the right questions, or redirect us to make sure that we were getting the most out of our 30 interviews. The cohorts are also a little bit smaller, so you get to know the other people in your group a little bit better. And it was a good experience. It kind of took us by surprise because we thought maybe we wouldn't need to do it, maybe we wouldn't have to do it, but it was, my program director came back and said, you're too late, you're in it, if you're doing it, here it comes. So, and I'm glad we did it. It was worth it. So.
What was your biggest takeaway from the boot camp?
That 30 is not enough.
Wow, you wanted to do more, huh?
Not so much that I wanted to do more, but it was very clear that we needed to do more. It's hard to interview that many people, especially if you're not a very outgoing person. But the further you get into it, the more you realize that you need to talk to these people. Talking to 5, you might be just talking to the people who tell you what you want to hear. Talking to 10, maybe a little bit better. Talking to 30, you're starting to get somewhere. It's not until you really talk to more people than you're comfortable with, maybe, that you start getting the real information. So I think after the boot camp, it became clear that 30 was not enough and we needed to keep talking.
All right, and speaking of that, Anita, let's see, we've got TABA, we've got a boot camp, I-Corps. How is this different than boot camp, and do I have to do push-ups?
Well, I-Corps, no push-ups, but I think Colleen should be the poster child for I-Corps and boot camp, because I think she got it. She really figured out what all this is. So I-Corps is Innovation Core Program, was first started by the National Science Foundation, NSF, about 10 years ago. They just put up the 10-year anniversary data sheets. And the goal of I-Corps really is to help transition deep tech from the research into the commercial market. So what all those agencies, and especially NSF, since they don't have customers built in, discovered is that even though they fund all those amazing technologies with the SBIR, STTR program, a lot of times they didn't transition into commercial opportunities. So there was no customer at the end. So they started this program to, right from the beginning, before sometimes the PI even wrote for an SBIR, to immerse them in this environment, to have to talk to potential customers, to really understand that, you know, even though this is amazing and it's innovative, there should be a customer outcome, a market outcome, if this is funded by additional dollars. So the I-Corps has taken on a lot of different flavors since then. So Colleen actually referred to the small one. So there's a site program, and the University of Arizona is a site. I believe ASU is a site. So there's, I think, almost 100 universities, mostly it's higher education organizations around the country that are site locations for I-Corps. So when you are a researcher at a university, you are in the best position to applying engaged in this NSF I-Corps universe by doing a site program. And then you would be eligible to go to a Teams program. And the difference is length, how many interviews you have to do, who does the training, and how intense it is. So for example, the University of Arizona site program is about 6 weeks. You interview 25 to 30 customers, and it's about a 2 to 3 hour commitment for about 5 or 6 weeks. The Teams program is 100 interviews. It is a 6-week intense program. You spend 3 days, all day, day and night, interviewing and working with your team. And then another 6 hours or so every week. And then you have a 3-day closeout after the 6 or 7 weeks. And it all varies a bit. With the pandemic right now, everything is virtual. Before and when we're through this, it'll be in person again, which is so much more fun. The money for the site program at the University of Arizona, the teams get $3,000 to do this work. At the national program, the Teams program, it's $50,000. Then, so that was only the NSF. So then other agencies, the National Institutes of Health, for example, have their own I-Corps program. And that is for SBIR recipients. So when you, just similar to what Colleen talked about, when they received their first SBIR, they were just signed up. I believe now you have to do a add-in or you apply for it. So the back to what Sonia said, always want to read the instructions because they change frequently. And 10 years is like a baby program, a brand new program in the government world. So they're still figuring out things. But just remembering the essence of I-Corps is to help researchers and innovators and really deep tech inventors that are typically at a university to identify if there is a commercial outcome and there is support. There's a program for that.
Okay.
And then there's flavors.
Okay. And you mentioned that there was a $3,000 and $50,000. Now, is that paid by the small business or how do they get that money?
That money is from the agency. So that's the fun part. So this is this additional extra money, that you can get. So the trick here is, and it's fun, like with all the federal monies, right? You want to make sure you understand what you can use it for. So in this case, it's literally for you to discover your customers. So if you need to go to a conference where your potential customers may be, that is covered. If you need to attend that session. So it's really all about getting to those customers. So the flight, the hotel, the conference fee, those things are covered by this money.
Okay. Could you say again what I-Corps stands for?
It's Innovation Core.
Innovation Core. Thank you. Sonia, we had a question. Can you apply for TABA if you have already received an SBIR?
Yeah, I saw that question. So I was under the impression that you couldn't. So as part of your proposal, you could apply for your TABA, and the TABA funds are going to be over and above what you get for your research and development effort. So if the agency gives you $100,000, the $6,500 is above the $100,000, right? So it came out in one particular case where this company reached out to me and they got an SBIR with the Department of Transportation, and they had not applied for TABA, but the DOT came back to them and say, we have TABA funds, do you want them? So they contacted me and they said, can you do these services? And I'm like, of course I can. And so they subcontracted me to do that after they had won the phase 1 SBIR. So then the DOT made an amendment to their contract, and we went through all the formality of being approved by them, and we got funds for that. So the fun part for the TABA, when I talked earlier, when I mentioned about the flexibility and the purpose of the TABA being to help you commercialize, the services that we can offer are just really exciting and diverse because we can help you from market research to marketing collateral, to web content, maybe help you with an IP strategy, with funding strategy. So it can be specific to your needs, right? So we could work with you to see where are your strengths and weaknesses and how can you utilize our services and my network to help you fill those gaps. In the case of this company with the DOT, they requested to do video. And so we did actually one video. They liked it so much that they came back with money outside of what the DOT had given them and hired us to do 2 more videos. So I worked with another local company to provide that, and everybody was happy. So it was really exciting. So,
Sure.
so to answer your question, again, each agency is going to be different, but find out what you can do and how to play by the rules of that agency by communicating with their SBIR program managers or with the or with your customer, your program director. So
Perfect.
that's a question.
Yes, and so TABA funding, there are agencies that are able to assist you in designating and making a plan for those services in the TABA funding. Yep.
Yeah.
You had mentioned customer discovery through the boot camp. I know you spoke to a lot of different people, and you also were able to connect to some other folks other than customers. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So during I-Corps, not only have we found some of our first customers, and so far our biggest customers, but we ran across somebody who was interested in our work and contacted us again and is now our national sales director. So now he has joined our team from I-Corps. And we've also come across, I met somebody in I-Corps that we talked to, and later on I came across a really pretty technical problem, and I contacted him again just outside of I-Corps, and he talked to me for an hour to help me solve it. So you make connections not just with potential customers to help you understand how you're going to approach your market, but you can also find people who will directly help you.
Perfect. That's nice, especially in this job environment. Always good to find good people. Now, there are other opportunities in terms of TABA and I-Corps and boot camps. I'm going to toss this out to anyone that's been able to take advantage of this. What about any experience with Dawnbreaker or LARDA or Phase Zero grant from Department of Energy?
Is that for the panelists or for the
panel, yep.
Audience? Okay. Well, I've worked with Dawnbreaker and LARDA and Foresight and all of them, either collaborating with them as, you know, they outsource just like I outsource. Sometimes when I get a contract, they outsource to me as well. And I've also been a customer when I've had my companies or work with others. And so although we provide similar services, we also provide different things. So Dawnbreaker offers the DOE Phase Zero. And it used to be first come, first serve for the first 100 small businesses that applied. It might be now bigger. I'm not so sure. I always still recommend everybody to, as soon as it's made available, go for it, because the government, DOE in this case, will pay for them to assist you with some of your market research to validate, in a sense, is there a market, is there a customer, and then they could also provide some services in reviewing your proposal before you submit. So it's available, it's really good, go for it. They also provide services like TABA, but they're also contracted, depends on the agency, to do specific services for you, right? So Dawnbreaker and LARDA, I think both work with NSF. So for the phase 1 awardees, sometimes they work under the boot camp or to offer you commercialization assistance so that you could have help in putting together your plan for the phase 2 proposal. So you have to, again, work with your client and your customer to know what additional support they have and see if they've already gotten a vendor or if there's flexibility for you to reach out and get a vendor like me under a separate contract to help you with those commercialization tasks or services.
Okay, great. Anita or Colleen, is there any other program that you have experience with that you'd like to talk about?
I do want to mention the I-Core program is based on the Steve Blank Lean Launchpad program. So if you're not familiar with that, and if you're not eligible to be in the I-Core, because as I mentioned, there needs to be a lineage, and depending on the program manager, there's ways around it or not. But if you're interested in how to do that kind of work, that is what it's based on. And I'm with, so I'm going to do my quick plug here with the incubator. We are very familiar with that method. And so our companies that are not eligible to apply for the I-Core program, because it's nice, it comes with funding and, a fully fleshed out program, we provide that kind of assistance to them as they go along. Just no money, unfortunately, but it still helps you to get to this customer and to really identify who your customer may be.
Jill, I wanted to add something about Dawnbreaker. I ran a little R&D center on the Scottsdale Air Park from 1984 to 1995, and we won 19 SBIRs, and the one we won from DOE, we worked with Dawnbreaker. So we worked with John and Jenny Servo. This is probably in the late 80s. And they were fantastic at helping us develop our business plan around the research that we were doing for DOE. As you know, there's this strong emphasis on commercialization, and that's one of the areas of expertise that Dawnbreaker has. So they were, in my experience, they were wonderful to work with.
That's great to hear. I'm going to do a quick plug for the Arizona Commerce Authority. We do have some grants that are made available through our FAST grant through the Small Business Administration. We'll be opening up our next round of $3,000 grants that can be used as funds for a grant writer, access to facilities, incubator programs, things like that. That'll be opening beginning of February. We'll be announcing our first round of awardees within the next week and a half or so. And then in a few weeks, we're going to be also opening up a grant that will cover the registration for the SBIR conference, national conference in June in Washington, D.C. And this is an amazing experience. It's an opportunity to meet the SBIR program managers in person. And it also gives you the chance to network with large prime contractors, other SBIR awardee companies, and there's breakout sessions for educational opportunities as well. I highly recommend the conference. So we'll be opening up that grant registration within the next couple of weeks here. I'm going to take just a quick break here, and Daryl, if you can help us get our poll started. We wanted to take a quick poll, and then we're going to come back to some more funding beyond SBIR. So, Daryl?
Perfect. Everybody should see the poll right up on your screens. Please take a moment to answer those. It's one question with a few options.
And thank you so much for responding to these poll questions. The Small Business Administration has provided us funding to help bring these educational workshops and panels to you. And this helps to make sure that we're spending the money wisely. We're telling them that we're not just inviting Jill's friends over for fun, that there are in fact small businesses that are getting a benefit from this. So thank you so much for responding. And if there's any, and also keep your questions coming in chat. There's a few that I also have that I'll be asking the panel as well. But we'll keep this pretty open, so.
So
Right.
Jill, maybe I can also plug the Department of Energy program that we're involved with. All right, so the Department of Energy has a massive program, and it is under the head of American Made Challenge. So the idea behind that is to not rely on other countries for the energy supply in this country. So they set up a program to really tease out some of the innovation that we hope to have in this country. And it's energy from the sun to the outlet. So it can involve energy capture, creation, distribution, and everything in between. So we are a contractor for that. So we are called a power connector. And they distribute this money in rounds, and it's almost a little bit like an SBIR in that there is different phases of how you receive this money. You have to be a finalist in phase 1 to be eligible for phase 2 and eligible for phase 3. If you make it, if your innovation makes it all the way to the end, you can get up to $750,000 in cash and vouchers at NREL to test out your technology. So if you're into energy innovation, see us and we can tell you more about that. But I think that's to the point of what Jill is saying. There's many programs through the government really looking for innovation that can benefit the US in all different areas. And if you are looking for that, chances are there's something that you can fit into, and we're here to help you find that. And I love to see more questions. There's 15 people. I hope there's more questions.
Oh, thank you. And it looks like for the most part, we've got about 58% that have not been familiar with these types of resources, 16% that have been somewhat, and then a quarter that have been pretty familiar with the resources and they've used them in the past. So wonderful. Would also appreciate in the chat there anyone's experience on a program that they've found particularly useful. One of the other programs is a matching funds program. Sonia, can you talk a little bit about matching funds? And then Anita, I think I'd like to grab you second.
Sure. So again, each agency has different programs. So you have to, once you've won one of these SBIRs or STTR phase 1 or phase 2, work with your customer at the specific agency to find out what other sources of funding they can come about. So we discussed TABA, we've discussed I-Corps, we've discussed the boot camp, but there's also matching funds, right? Most of the matching funds I found that are not available for phase 1. Okay, so keep that in mind. But that being said, still find out, do your due diligence, talk to your customer, do your research, because there could be some matching funds that I'm not aware of. For the phase 2s, excuse me, each agency can have different programs. Some offer matching funds, some don't, right? For instance, the NSF has matching funds for your phase 2, up to $500,000. NASA has the phase 2E, where they can match up to, I think, $300 something $1,000. Let me check my cheat sheet so I have the right amounts for you. $375,000 for the NASA Phase E. DHS has $250,000 cost matching program. NIST has some cost sharing programs under their Office of Advanced Manufacturing. DARPA has their Phase 2 enhancement up to $500,000, and NASA also has something called the Commercialization Readiness Pilot Program, where if you have a Phase 2, they could do a one-to-one matching up to 2.5 million. So, you know, it just depends. They want you already, you know, on the right track, going after these funds. And I think I summarized a little bit more about NSF. Besides their matching, they call them supplemental funding opportunities. And they have the Phase 2B, 500,000 max. It has to be third-party investment. So keep that in mind. Sometimes they think, well, maybe if I get in kind, it depends on agency to agency. So read the instructions and confirm with your program manager what you need to do. They also have something called commercial strategic partnerships, where they will do a 20% of your Phase 2 award. And this is NSF. And then again, we've discussed their TABA, they could go up to 50,000. And NSF, NASA, NIH, and DOE offer up to 50,000. Navy has the SBIR and STTR transition plan, or STP. I worked as part of that program for 5 years, and I helped with getting ATSI win their first 5 years. It used to be the Navy TAP, or the Navy Opportunity Forum, they used to call it back then. Under Dawnbreaker, ATSI took over. They're on their second 5 years after a recompete. And under that program, the Navy also offers transition assistance, where they will help you with going to pay for one or more conferences to attend. They will give you a market research analysis report, and they will help you also with setting up your booth and things of that sort. So it's pretty cool. I worked under that program for many years, and now they felt I was under conflict of interest because I did similar things on my own. So we separated. But one of the nice things about TABA, for instance, and I sorry keep on working, but it's kind of, if you do this correctly, you can intermingle all these kind of different funding opportunities. So under TABA, one of the services that we can provide is finding opportunities or transition partners, right? And so we did this, which generated the third-party investment that was then used to get matching funds under a NASA Phase 2B. And we did that actually with a company from Georgia, with a company from Tucson. So everybody won in our ecosystem. And so it's just, it's very exciting. It's very exciting what the government and the agencies are doing. And by leveraging the SBIR and these other matching funds or supplemental funding opportunities, you could really add additional money to your company and help you commercialize with other people's money and expertise.
Other people's money. I like it. So just to quickly summarize on that piece, and Anita, I want to get to you because I know you've got something here too. But matching funds are available through some agencies. Again, talk to your program manager, read the topic announcements. But the funds would come from a third party, a customer, potentially like an angel investment or VC, something like that. And then if, for example, you got a $50,000 invoice sale from a customer, then you could get a potential 50,000 match from the agency in addition to that. And that is again non-dilutive funding. I did want to just highlight a couple of comments here. Lou Farina, who's in the chat, is with the Small Business Development Center, and he's been a mentor as part of the NSF I-Corps program. And the SBDC is an amazing resource. Lou is awesome. So he's another good resource for that. Eric Miller from PADT, congratulations. It says, you said that you're using matching funds from DOD on a NASA STTR, and your program manager helped you find the DOD funding source. Good job. So make sure you pick Eric's brain on that one too. And Anita had just said that being a mentor is a great way to get involved in I-Corps and get the full experience. Martin, are any of the panelists familiar with the VA Greenhouse Initiative? And then Anita, I'm coming back to you.
I'm not. I had to hop on and see, and it stirred another thing, because it is, it's back to those agencies. They get a whole bunch of money, and they also have to show what they're doing with the money to have commercial output. And so they're really often looking for different ways to do that. So it seems to me that this VA Greenhouse Initiative, which I believe VA might be Virginia, I'm not sure, is such a thing. So they're accepting proposals to participate, and it's really to test out your technology. And we also talked about phase 0 earlier. The Army, which often you don't think of as being very innovative and creative, they do also always look for solutions. And so we do actually in the state of Arizona have a couple of people that are with the Army Reserve 75th Innovation Command. And so the trick is you need to really look for what they care about. So they have a list of 6 or 7 items that they really care about. And if you happen to have innovation in that area, you can talk to them and really develop this relationship to figure out how they can fund your innovation. And that is, again, would be outside of SBIR. It could turn into an SBIR, because if they find technology that is available and they want to fund, then they will help figure out mechanisms to fund that. Yes, technology scouts, even from the Army.
Oh, very good, very good. Anita, I think you had some thoughts on matching funds. I don't know if there was something else you wanted to add to that, or
no, yeah, the one I'm familiar with is most is the NSF phase 2B. So as Sonia said, sometimes people forget about that, or they think it's really difficult. One of our companies, as Sonia mentioned, it spurred this whole effect of, they had their phase 2, they had already talked to investors, then they had this phase 2B, which then prompted the investors to put the money in, because from the investors' perspective, they just, reduce their risk in half by getting somebody else's money in addition to their own money. So it really all works together in this ecosystem. And as a founder, make sure if you're not aware of that, talk to anybody here on the panel, just to really take advantage of that. Don't look at them in silos, but how can you build on all those opportunities and take advantage of it.
Colleen, you are representing the small business here that has received the SBIR, that's gone through boot camp, that's gone through I-Corps. Tell us, what else do you see as something beyond SBIR funding that's assisted you, whether it was financial or otherwise?
So beyond the funding, I think primarily is the networking opportunities and just having the opportunity to learn something. So, I mean, it kind of sounds like you get an SBIR and suddenly this wonderful chunk of money comes down and you do whatever you want with it. But that's not really what happens once you have it, right? You can only use it for certain things. Certain portions of it can only be used in certain ways. We've realized that fortunately we thought about this beforehand, of course, but some of our SBIR work is falling in very, very nicely with what our customers are currently requesting. So that is both, I think, a benefit of having done so many interviews and talked to so many people that we could anticipate what they might be asking for at this point in our process. And so that's worked out really well for us. But also the connections, we've been able to hire a new scientist in the lab, and that's been having another person that has a different background has really helped us expand the way we think, but also helped us look more critically at our own projects. And so it's, of course, we've paid for that with SBIR funding, but that opportunity is there now to have him in our lab, revamping some of our protocols, making us approach problems in a different way. It's been really beneficial for us, both in terms of our internal development, but also in the way that we face our customers.
That's great. That's great. So expanding your network and helping make connections that might not otherwise have been there.
Yes, I think so. And I also think, like, especially the I-Corps programs, once you've done that and I think in a way that shows that you're serious about what you're doing. In a way, you've come through it, you've done these interviews, you've compiled the data, you've considered what it really means, you've made a plan based on actual facts at this point and not just the things that you wanted to be true. And I think that gives you not just a better platform on which to build your company, but also gives you a little bit of credit to your company that you have completed this and survived it. It's a little bit of a badge for you, kind of, in a way, right? It's kind of one of those intangible things, but it does help a lot when you can say, we've gone through the I-Corps program. We really have talked to people and we continue to talk to people. It's pretty important to be able to say that, not just to people who might be looking at you to invest, but also to other customers. If you're not the first customer we've talked to who has said this, that right there starts a connection with that customer and with other people as well. So all of that kind of works together to get the ball rolling.
That's great. We have talked a little bit, I think we've heard through other workshops and things, some sort of funding and technology roadmap and a strategy. All of these programs that we've been mentioning today, TABA, Dawnbreaker, Phase Zero, I-Corps, all these different things. You guys have been mentioning this build upon. How do you go about, I'm going to throw this out to the panel. How do you go about building this roadmap? How do you go about understanding what you're going to use to fund for your innovation and how you're going to utilize these things for the growth of your company? Anyone on the panel want to take that mic? I'm going to start calling.
I'll take a quick stab at it, right? Because having done product development from start to finish, and road mapping, understand, here's your complete solution. What are the different components and part of it? And then look at how much money you're going to need by when for each of these subcomponents or subsystems, and see if you can identify what has been funded by who, when, and start doing your homework, you're reaching out, and then deciding, well, this could potentially be funded through SBIR, STTR, then I might need additional funds this way. So similar to, and Anita and Colleen, and I've gone through I-Corps and customer and mentoring both, you create this roadmap with your funding strategy where you lay it out and you actually do something similar to what you would be presenting to investors, where you have to understand how much money you need, what you're going to do, and how you're going to get it, right? So potentially some is going to have to come from investors. Some you could potentially get it from the SBIR funds, and some will require matching or other assistance, right? But you have to start thinking and road mapping it and strategizing so that you can go and make your connections, go and network and find out, can I fund this through SBIR? And don't only rely on it. You might not win, right? So you've got to have plan A, B, and C, but that's what I would recommend. And if you do win, go and get those matching funds. It's part of what you did during your I-Corps. Build that network, identify who are you going to be partnering with, who are you going to be your customers, and what you're going to get out of it, and put it on that roadmap. And it's going to be evolving, right? But it's going to be helping you. Does that answer kind of what you were looking for?
Yeah, Colleen, because you've mentioned the I-Corps. Colleen, how did that look for you and building out a roadmap?
It changed probably 500 times during I-Corps, and that's, yeah, it's something I wanted to mention, that you make a roadmap, but it can change in an instant, and you have to be ready. And we've learned this, I think, and we keep learning it, that we make this plan and we try to go out as far as we can with what's reasonable, and then it becomes a little bit less reasonable, and then it's a way out there stretch, but we're, at least looking that far. It can change very, very fast. And then when it does, instead of getting upset, we have to sit down, recalculate, take stock of what we have, what we can do, what do we have now, what do we need, and what are these different scenarios? If it's a thin spot, how can we get through it and live to fight another day? If we're doing pretty good, how can we use that to our full advantage to make sure that when things do get tough again, that we can get through it. I also wanted to mention that it's true you might not get the SBIR or STTR funding. We applied 6 times before we got our first. So it was many rejections, and we keep applying and we keep getting rejected as well. So it's even after you get one, you still get rejected after that. And it can feel very personal because you worked really hard on it, but and the commentary can be at times brutal, not cruel, but brutal. But you learn from it and then you try again. And yeah, it took us so many tries before we finally got a little bit of funding and got some traction. So I just wanted to put that out there for anybody who's thinking about it and hasn't tried yet. It might take some time.
Thank you. Have you incorporated some of these other programs as potential items on your roadmap? Matching funds and things?
Yes, so that's something that we've considered, and it's something that we're continuing to think about. At this point, we are not in a position to make full use of those. We don't, for example, for the matching funds, we don't have any third parties investing yet, and we don't make such large orders. I think you said it was like, $20,000 or $50,000. Our orders are much smaller than that. We have a consumable product. So we have customers, but they're not $50,000 orders. Not yet, hopefully one day, but we're working our way towards that. So I think this will come into play in the future for us. But at the moment, we're still working on getting into our market with a good solid footing before we can take the next steps, I think.
Perfect. Anita, you're very familiar with the I-Corps program. Tell us what your perspective is on building the roadmaps.
Well, I think the I-Corps is fantastic for this early work. Really, figuring out who your potential customers are. A lot of those deep technologies are also platform technology, right? And you're really figuring out where's your first market. Maybe you have different applications that you thought about. One of our companies is exactly that. It actually was a student team out of the University of Arizona, and they thought they're in one industry because their innovation can be used in different industries. And through I-Corps, they discovered that's not really their first market. So they did then enough discovery since then to really go into another industry. So I think it's a good use of, the federal funds, which again, they're intended for that, because you don't want to build on something that then, flops in a year or two. So really do this work early and utilize those funds to do so. And then you can build onto that with the other opportunities. And also, if you go through I-Core, your chances of getting an SBIR are immensely higher. They go up so much higher. So there's a little checkbox when you apply for SBI if you went through I-Core, and they do consider that, because then they understand, oh, you've had the training, you do understand about the commercial outcome that's desired, so you get a little leg up. And your proposal should be much better.
So let's talk about that, because that's actually not beyond SBIR, that's pre-SBIR.
Or SBIR, right? And
Yes.
like I said,
So
you know,
how
some
do-
agencies have it between. So if you've already gotten a phase 1, I believe it's NASA, NIH, and DOE. So if you have a phase 1, then you're eligible to do the I-Core program, which is, you know, it can be the full I-Core, it can be a boot camp. There's, again, all those different flavors. But if your agency offers it, highly, highly recommend to go through that, because then you use those funds to have a better chance to get the phase 2. So, you know, it's out there. You have to find out what works for your technology and your agency. So NSF is the one that's way in the beginning, and then other agencies have between phase 1 and 2. Department of Defense had one they're reviewing right now, the effectiveness, and I don't know what, you know, it's still government money, so they have to figure out what to do next, and it's a pandemic. But you know, if you have an agency, make sure you track them to see where they have that money.
Okay, so some agencies have I-Core programs pre-SBIR, so check that out as well.
Yep.
It's your agency of interest. Great. What is, Sonia, what is one of your favorite things about one of these programs that we've talked about, or something that we haven't touched upon?
Gosh, I love them all. Some require more work than others, right? If you have already matching funds, take advantage of it. I-Core is a lot of work, but it's well-needed program. I mean, does the discovery process and the validation that your technology is needed, or if you need to pivot, which sometimes happens, is extremely important. And doing it early is better than later, because it will cost you a lot less. And so that is one of the discoveries that can happen as part of the I-Core program. So yes, it is painful. It's sometimes the 8 weeks of hell, but it's one of those hell activities that are worth being in hell for. So, but I don't know. I mean, I think it you know, if I put my small business hat on, I've leveraged all of these at different stages of my companies and for my customers. So I love them all, dependent on what stage you're in.
Oh, spoken like a true mother. I love them all.
I
just want to throw out there, it's not hell.
Okay.
Don't scare off, Sonia.
No. That's why there's you and all of us to help them navigate the hell so that it's not actually, yeah, no, it just depends on your attitude. It wasn't that hellish. It just was stressful.
It's intense.
But it's intense, and you learn and you know, it's just like, hey, true mothers, they're not equal. Each kid is not equal, and each time you go through I-Core, it's not going to be the same.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Anita, I'm assuming I-Core is the program near and dear to your heart.
I love I-Core. When they first started having the site programs, gosh, it's probably now 6-7 years ago, when the University of Arizona became a site program, you know, implementer. I had the pleasure of going through the training programs for the trainers. So I was train the trainer, And it just made so much sense. So yes, I love I-Core. If anybody has an opportunity to go through it, I recommend it. It is intense. So, you know, the 8 weeks, don't plan to do much of other things because it's very dedicated, but it is so needed. You know, especially when you do deep tech, scientific innovations, you know, you want to know that there's a market out there and who the market is. So I typically position it, this is work you need to do anyways, so you may as well get paid for doing it. So, you know, that's really my my soapbox that I go on, because a lot of times especially when it's after the phase 1, you know, people feel like, oh, you know, we're doing well, we got a company going, and you know, why shall I spend now, you know, those 5 to 8 weeks, depending on which program it is, out of my busy entrepreneurial life doing this? But I say no, like it is so valuable. And thank you, Colleen. You know, it's a cohort, so you're in there with others. And especially the NIH, they try to put you in cohorts in your industry, in your potential market space, in your discovery. So if you're therapeutic, you're in there with therapeutics companies, and you know, so it's just so much value, even beyond the money. But there's real cash money. I forgot to mention, I think it's also for the phase 1s, the technical lead usually gets a bit of cash. Right now with the pandemic, it's a little more because it's the 50,000 and they were trying to see how can we spend that if we can't travel. So let's give a little bit more to the team. So there's extra cash into the pocket of the company. So, you know, really, yes, big fan, super big fan.
All right, Colleen, what has been your favorite program, or is there one that you think sounds intriguing?
Oh gosh. I see that I have a lot of homework to do, but I've always known that. So that part hasn't really changed. I am not sure. I have to think about it. We are working toward a phase 2, we have actually 2 phase 1s. We have one from NSF and one from NIH, and we're looking to prepare our phase 2s for both of those. So right now, that's going to be a big part of our focus. And I think as we're planning for that, we're going to have to consider what other kind of opportunities would be to our advantage to apply for or to find. So I think we're in the planning stage for that. But there's, yeah, a lot to do for that, but it's coming up for us. Our phase 2 is going to be due this spring.
Perfect. Can you tell everyone a little bit about the beginning of your SBIR, kind of everything that was going on with you?
Oh, yeah. So I think Mr. Freeman mentioned that NSF I-Core pre-SBIR is eligible for NSF basic research. So because we are out of the University of Arizona, that was the program that we fell into. And so we did, and we applied for the SBIR. I can't remember when the application was due, but I think it was the winter of 2019 or the end of the year at 2019 or the beginning of 2020. And so we were being interviewed just as everything was shutting down. And then we received both our first NSF phase 1 and the I-Core award just when things were shutting down. So in May of 2020. And then we had to do the boot camp. So we started our NSF phase 1 with 2 people who could work in the lab, limited lab space, limited people who could be in the lab at the same time while we were doing boot camp. And then boot camp overlapped with I-Core. So there was about a week where we were doing both at the same time. That was a little bit rough there at the end, trying to finish up the boot camp and start the I-Core at the same time. And in March also, I just had a baby. So I had my baby. She went through the entirety of I-Core with me. She went to pretty much every interview. So she was, most of the time people didn't know it, but most of the time she was in my lap. But at the beginning, I tried to keep her quiet. By the end of I-Core, we were so exhausted She would just cry, and I just mute myself and apologize and say, just a moment, give me a moment here, we'll be all right. But we did all the interviews and more. Actually, it seems like impossible that you could do 100 interviews, but by the end, it's almost impossible not to do more than 100 interviews. So you get rolling, and it's like you can't stop, and you shouldn't stop. You should just keep going.
Mhm.
But it was all at once, but we somehow juggled it and got through it, and probably are the stronger for it.
You had an ask for me or for maybe Arizona that you wish you could have had back in May of 2020. Can you ask the group?
Yes, yeah, so what I had wished when I started this in 2020, when everything was suddenly happening all at once at like the worst possible time, like our first SBIR came in, and we got all of these things rolling, and then suddenly there was everything shut down to a grinding halt, and so there was so much work to do and no way to do it, and dealing with having a very young family at home. And actually, my baby was just born, but I have 2 older children as well, so they were at one point dancing in the background while I was interviewing a very serious scientist in the lab. He was very, like, the HPLC was in the background, and he had his lab coat on, and he's obviously taking time out of his day to talk to me. And my son dances by with a rainbow tutu in the background, and I could see he's kind of like was trying to hold it in, but by the end he gave up and he was smiling. So it was good in the end. But I wish that I'd had somebody to talk to. So if anybody finds themselves in that point in their lives where they need somebody to just commiserate, I just want anybody to know that you're not alone when all that stuff suddenly happens all at once. That somehow, even though maybe it's not going the way you'd hoped it would or the way you planned, it's okay. And if you need somebody to talk to, there are people to talk to. So there's a community out there to reach out for.
Thank you. Mic drop. I think we can end it with that. But to Colleen's point, please, this is Arizona. We have the most collaborative state out there. If anyone's going to help each other and talk to each other, it's Arizona. So you just heard from Colleen. If there's something that you're hesitating, if there's something that you want to know, ask, reach out and ask. Please do. I'm happy to connect you with the email. The Tech Council folks are here as a support. Anita, Sonia, Arizona has some amazing resources. Reach out and just ask. I am going to open that back up again to you guys. What other questions, thoughts, ideas do you guys have? Anita has opened up UACI to talk. So anyone else? Was there anything somebody was surprised about? Is anyone interested in boot camp or I-Core or TABA?
Crickets. Oh my
Oh my
gosh.
goodness. Well, if you're going after a phase 1 or phase 2, please reach out, ask, and see if we could be a good match for helping you with TABA services. If you're a UACI client, we're available there to support you with reviews, with comments, with all kinds of assistance. ACA has the FAST grant. Go after it. It can help you secure additional resources with your proposals. Yeah, this is an incredible state. We're all here to help you.
Yeah, and I want to give a plug too for the Innovation Challenge, the Arizona Innovation Challenge. Again, going back to leveraging all the money.
Yeah.
You go after the I-Core and the phase 1, and then the Flynn Foundation if you're in biosciences, and the Innovation Challenge, and the Startup Tucson, and the Venture Madness. You want to do it all. And back to poor Colleen with her baby struggling, like, oh my gosh, reach out to us. We at UACI with our startups, we have mentors, we have the subject matter experts. I'm here, so we do a lot of hand holding, you know, and especially me, because I'm not a scientist or technology, I don't believe in stupid questions. So a lot of our companies, they come to me when they feel like maybe they might be judged by somebody else about their question. They come to me and I'm happy to help them through whatever. So, you know, I find it very encouraging when people come from out of state and they say, everybody's so nice here, to which I usually say, where do you come from? But it is Arizona, and, you know, talk to us.
With that, if there are no other questions, Daryl or Steve, I don't know if you guys wanted to do anything. We do have some links to these programs that I will email out to everyone. So you'll have those handy. But thank you so much. And please let us know if there's anything else we can do to help you with SBIR.
Thank you, Jill, and thank you to the panelists. Fabulous presentation. I don't think it could have been more informative and useful for those looking to participate in SBIR and STTR. I just want to remind folks that we have Arizona Photonics Days coming up January 19 to 21. We have our Phoenix Golf Tournament on January 26th and our VIP Tech Mixer in Tucson on January 27th. And again, you can find details at aztechcouncil.org. I wanted to mention, I put this in chat, we will be providing educational, informational events throughout the year at many of our signature events and standalone SBIR events in collaboration with the ACA throughout the rest of the year. So look forward to seeing you all again, and thank you for attending today. And again, thanks to the team and to Daryl for putting on this event. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you soon.
And thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Let's see. Did it stop recording?
No, I think it's still recording. You guys were awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. It seemed like it went really well. It flowed well. Thank you for having us.
Good information. And Colleen couldn't have asked for a better ending. That was beautiful.
Oh, yes.
That
was fantastic.
How are
I
you
loved it.
these days, Colleen? Are you a little bit more, feel like a little like you're above the water a little bit more?
No.
No. Well, if you, I also have
It's all good,
children,
though.
and I have now a grandchild, so you know, I'm here.
Yeah, it's hard to balance this being a laboratory scientist and trying to start a company with being a parent too. So, and I think, as I know, I at least saw a couple of other people, at least one other person during I-Corps, like secretly. I'm like, I know what you're doing.
That is great.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, we could have, well, but that was, it's not supported by the agencies, because I was thinking when you mentioned the Flynn and the ACI and those things, all the pitching competitions, it adds up, and applying, I mean, to all these things. I mean, there's the MedTech Innovator. There was just recently one which escapes my mind now. I shared it on LinkedIn, so take a look at what it was I shared. And it came up on my LinkedIn and I shared it. There's all kinds of programs now also supporting, and we didn't talk about it, but we will soon enough with some of our future panels, but helping the underserved communities. There is so much going on from both the federal government as much as from foundations and private individuals. And so how do we help the small businesses go after that? And it becomes intermingled as part of that funding strategy, right? And the road mapping.
All right, well, I'm going to jump off.
I love it. Yes,
Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you soon. Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.